One, two, three, four.
Hello, you're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But SKYLIT is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep SKYLIT alive, please visit our website at skylitbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Welcome, lovely listeners. Thank you for joining us here on the SKYLIT Books podcast. This is SKYLIT, our sort of quarantine remote podcast conversation series with authors all over the country. My name is Maddie Gobbo. I'm the events manager here at SKYLIT Books in Los Angeles. If you're not familiar with us, welcome. Thank you for finding our podcast. I don't know how you did that. Congratulations on your excellent detective skills. SKYLIT Books is a general interest bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. We're open right now every day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for shopping with a mask. And we also do online orders and curbside pickup through our website, skylitbooks.com. All right, so today we have a fantastic conversation with some poems and maybe some funny anecdotes. I'm really excited to hear more. Joining us today are Sarah Manguso and Jennifer L. Knox, who has a new poetry collection out called Crushing It. I'm going to read their official bios, but first I just wanted to say welcome to the podcast. Thank you both for being here, Sarah and Jen.
Thanks for having us.
Ditto that.
Matt.
All right, so let's introduce you to our listeners. So, Jennifer L. Knox is the author of Crushing It, which comes out from Copper Canyon Press on October 20th, as well as Days of Shame and Failure, The Mystery of the Hidden Driveway, Drunk by Noon, and A Gringo Like Me. Her poems have appeared in Great American Prose Poems, Best American Erotic Poems, The New York Times, The New Yorker, American Poetry Review, Granta, and 5 times in the Best American Poetry Series, including this year, 2020. She teaches at Iowa State University and is the proprietor of a tiny spice blend company called Salt Liquors. All right, and in conversation with Jennifer today is Sarah Manguso. Sarah Manguso is the author of 8 books, most recently 4 works of nonfiction, 300 Arguments, Ongoingness, The Guardians, and The Two Kinds of Decay. Her first novel, Very Cold People, what a great title, I love that title, was forthcoming from Hogarth. She lives in Los Angeles and teaches at Antioch University. Sarah and Jennifer, welcome and take it away.
Thanks, Maddie. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. You cut out for a minute. Now you're back. It's totally my fault. My connection is unstable, which is symbolic, I think, of how I feel inside.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah. Maddie, thank you so much for having us. I am so excited to talk to Jen in any context, from karaoke to post-therapy to poetry podcasts, which are very serious like this one. So I wanted to start by just telling the story of how I first became aware of Jen's amazing work. I was a screener at the Iowa Review in 1997. And so I read a lot of poems about prairies and sunsets and, poetry stuff. And I got a packet of poems that Jen had sent with a very brief cover letter. So there wasn't a lot of biographical information on hand. And in that packet of poems was one called My Big German Bra, which I pushed for really hard to get into the magazine. Couldn't do it. But a few years later, it appeared in her amazing first collection, A Gringo Like Me. So and the the poems are funny, but funny sort of with an asterisk. And I thought I should say something about funny writing in general, because as far as I know, the only funny writer to ever have won the Nobel Prize was Dario Fo. And when that happened, everybody just fell apart. They couldn't believe that a funny writer was getting the Nobel Prize. And, if you want anyone to consider you a serious writer, if you're funny, you're already doing it wrong. So I just want to say that before Jen reads from Crushing It, a few poems, and just be aware that some of them might be funny.
Thank you. Thank you for the warning, Sarah. I love to read I love a warning.
Yeah, content warning.
I'll just read and then I'll talk about funny. And the first poem I'm going to read has a very unfunny title, Old Women Talking About Death. And this is about all my mother's people in Southern Illinois, Metropolis. Old women talking about death. When did I become one of them? I used to roll my eyes at their gory stories. EMTs found a neighbor at the bottom of her basement steps, a head-to-toe hematoma. Use a cane, I told her. Shrugs. Grandma and the great aunts itemized her injuries. Poor dear. How long till she was found? They told their stories picnicking atop our people at the cemetery, atop all the men in our family who died young. The rest disappeared. Shrugs. So no stories for them. These days, when I call Kay, she tells me about her friends who are dying or have died since we last spoke, and I feel closer to her, an adult. Yesterday, Jay filled me in on M's cancer. It's bad, she whispered. I leaned forward. M's doctors removed her necrotic uterus through her abdomen in 2 jammy black hunks because her insides had decayed into a sarcomatous tar pit. Then her incision dehisced. I cocked my head. Jay made a starburst motion over her belly button. Ah, I said. I've heard that happens with cancer. I was grateful Z had described the process to me after her stepmother died. Now I even have a name for that indignity. Thank God. I hate surprises. That's a laugh riot. And this one's called Wolverine Season. Oh, honey, are you okay? I asked the woman in the bathroom, soaking wet as if she'd just emerged from the shower. Yeah, maybe too much rum on an empty stomach. She wiped her mouth with her hand and left. In the sink, waxy red flecks of lipstick. That woman over there just puked up lipstick in the bathroom, I yelled in my friend's ear over the Black Sabbath tribute band. She yelled back and smiled. Write a poem about that. We were up late for a school night. It was all part of the new regimen. The documentary I'd just seen about death said rocking out is actually good for you. And rocking out to Sabbath. Dude, we were going to live like forever on the bones other animals passed up.
God, I love that one.
Thanks. That all happened. It's all true.
Nonfiction. Okay, I'm going to mute myself for the next 2, and then I'm going to hop back in.
Okay. This is called The Gift. It's the poem that is in the new Best American Poetry edited by Paisley 2020. The Gift. You can tell whether a bird has a mate if there are pin feathers on its head, new feathers that start out as stubs full of blood, then enshroud themselves in a white, scaly coat as they grow. Preening releases the feather, but a bird can't reach the top of its own head. A mate preens that spot, unless the bird is alone in a cage. Pin feathers itch, so I preen my unpaired birds, wrap them in a towel, scritch their heads, and blow till the dandruffy stuff flutters out. They looked pretty mangy this morning, I recall, as I stare at the side of my mother's face from the back seat. How long has it been since I took her in for a haircut? And her whiskers, she can't see to shave. We're driving back roads, pointing out deer and hawks as she awes, before taking her back to her apartment. Colin calls it traveling gravel. She loves it when he drives and I sit in the back so she could talk as much as she wants. He always answers her questions. Sometimes I'll go hours without saying a word while she talks and talks. When I was little, she'd bring a book to restaurants and read while I, no doubt, talked and talked. Things children said weren't interesting to her, she told me, and family never had to say, I'm sorry. Yes, we've hurt each other, but only I've done it on purpose. Did I tell you she bought me this car? It's the most generous gift I've ever received. And this is the last one from the book. I've written, turns out, several poems in which Irwin Allen appears. Irwin Allen was the filmmaker who made The Towering Inferno, Airplane, Airport, not Airplane.
Asking
Airplane.
me? Oh man, I do not have this accessible.
Airplane is the funny one.
Airplane's the funny one.
Right, with Dean Martin and I think Yves Saint Laurent designed the stewardesses' uniforms for it. It was
That's
a
quality.
big deal. And there was Airport 77. Towering Inferno, The Poseidon Adventure. So all those big balls disaster movies. That was Irwin Allen. And one of my favorite movies is a documentary by Errol Morris called Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control. And it's about 4 men with very different jobs. One of them is a lion tamer. And he said when he was a little boy, everyone loved lion tamers. Nobody questioned that as a career choice, because back then they didn't know who would win in a battle of man versus nature, which reminded me of Irwin Allen. And this is called Irwin Allen versus the Lion Tamer. We used to love lion tamers because people really didn't know who would win in a battle of man versus nature. Back then, all the stories ended in death, our death, by mauling or snake bite or dog bite or being struck by lightning, smothered by an avalanche, charged off a cliff, carried away in the talons of an eagle, inhaled by a whale, stung by a scorpion, swarmed by killer bees, gored by a rhino, poisoned by berries, pricked by a sticker, swallowed by quicksand, beguiled by a black cat, gobbled up by a witch. So imagine the relief with one flick of the whip and up, the skulking lion stands on legs like a human. Its toothy protest, no big thing. After all those years of fear, I'd laugh at it too. And that's what people did until there were no more lions to laugh at. But Irwin Allen knew death doesn't live in a thing you can kill with a gun. It's not the heat, it's the hubris. The fire that wipes the city out begins in birthday candles and the happy huff behind. The storm that flips the cruise ship starts in the sea that rises up to fill the empty sky. An airplane crash begins not in birds, but in the feeders we've stolen the seed from, certain nobody can see us.
I'm wrapped.
Irwin.
I honestly, unlike crows who can count to 4, I lost track in the middle. So I don't know if that was the 3rd one or the 4th one. I'm floating in space here.
That was 4.
Oh,
but
great. Okay.
We made it to 3. I think 4 is just around the corner. I'm still at 2.
Oh, well, good luck with that. Yeah, there's an additional level of mediatedness because I turned my video off because my internet is mostly being used by my third grader who's in school right now in the next room. But
Nice.
oh God. So one of the things that I haven't mentioned yet is how incredibly comforting your poems are.
Oh my
And
God.
they're I find them so comforting because they start out in humor, which, you know, it goes down like birthday cake frosting. And
Mhm.
then that, you know, I feel like anybody could see in about 5 lines that your humor is like, it's like a portal into fear, panic, shame, oblivion. And I don't know if this is, I mean, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but I just, I find that so incredibly comforting that you know, I suddenly have a companion and the speaker of these poems in my
Oh, that's
daily, you
fair.
know, little, you know, that's my beat: fear, panic, shame, and oblivion. I mean, it's basically,
Yep.
it's pretty much my job. So I was wondering, can you talk about humor in the context of your work and the context of those things?
Sure. I'll start by saying that let's say there's a big crowd in a town square, and there's a woman in the middle of that crowd screaming and saying, like, just flipping out. I'm like, there's mine. That's mine right there. She's mine. So I too am compelled, I think for some, well, for all of us, right? It's to be in a poem and to write a poem. It's a big moment. So my moments are meltdowns. Um, and if I manage to write myself enough to stand up, that's great. Sometimes I think more what I wrote when I was younger, I went down with the ship, but we don't explode into that flaming supernova. We just keep going.
Yeah.
So now as a much older person, I don't get to go down with the ship.
Yeah, and
I don't
that's
get
the
to
real
panic.
punishment, right? Yeah, no, I recognize that about your first book. Everything ended in an incredible explosion.
Oh, I
Even
recall. Sure.
even poems like Chicken Bucket, even poems like Hot Ass Poem, which is more of like a lyric. It you know, when we were young, at least when I was young, I thought, you know, that's the real punishment, to die. And now,
Right.
you know, I'm looking at 50. Oh,
Right.
now I get it. The real
Yeah.
punishment is to bury everybody else. And yeah, something clicked on. You know, I think it was happening for you before this book. I think it was um, definitely in Days of Shame and Failure, maybe even in uh, the book between Drunk by Noon and Days of Shame and Failure.
Uh, it
Who
was
remembers the title?
Mystery of the Hidden Driveway.
Yeah, Hidden Driveway. Yeah, I think it
I,
was Hidden
I,
Driveway. In your
I have to remember where
in your
the car.
series in your series about cars, which is called Cars,
Yes.
not coincidentally. Yeah,
Car.
there was this awakening of this kind of companion, this companion speaker. Like there was still this deep pull toward, as you're saying, the meltdown, but the speaker didn't get to just dive into the, you know, burning lava. The speaker was just kind of there. And so there's such an amazing there's such an amazing example of just that effect in the poem that you just read about your mother, which is going to be in the best American poetry. You're in the
Mm-hmm.
car, you're driving, but then you're not driving. You just have to stay in the car. And that for me is just such a, it's such a key kind of Jennifer L. Knox image.
Well, back to that woman melting down and screaming. If everybody's doing that, then you already know what's going to happen. So the surprise would be if she brushed herself off and walked away, and you never saw her again.
Oh
She just
God,
walked out between two buildings.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Maybe from
people talk about humor as an outlet, like it's a sort of it's a way to, you know, express the real thing.
mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts about that? It seems wrong to me, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not wrong.
I think there. I hope I have problems recalling words these days, but I think there are different kinds of humor. I have, even though I didn't get a word for it for a long time, I know now that I love to. I love to watch things. I love to hear things, and I love to write with the premise of the incongruity theory, which sets you up with expectations and then moves it. And the shift can happen repeatedly throughout the poem, or it can wait. You think you know what's coming, and then boom, at the end, which feels like more of a surprise if you're not ready. If you don't know, this room shifts, and suddenly there's one big shift at the end, 2 lines from the bottom. That's going to feel like more of a surprise, and more like you've been punked. There's humor that makes fun of other people. There's humor in which we make fun of ourselves. I have done both. I've done all three. But my favorite thing to do is set up, because every poem is a different room. You walk in and it's decorated completely differently. A birthday party's going on in there. You don't know whose birthday it is. Everyone's wearing matching shorts. You didn't get the memo. You don't know who any of these people are, and you have to. And the goal is to get somebody to wade in, like get all the way to the middle and taste that cake. How you gonna do it?
Oh man.
So part of what I like to do, and why I think people identify my work with humor, is that when you walk into that room, I like to play a little dumb.
Yeah.
Which is also not going to win you a Nobel Prize.
Oh no. But it gives you an opportunity to sort of just exist free of other people's expectation. It's
I'm blissfully free of that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, maybe less than before, but one thing that we probably both know by now, and this is the servicey part of this podcast, is that whatever happens to you on the outside, like if you get into Best American Poetry, for example, or publish a bunch of books, you feel the same way as you always did. So I
don't know if I do, because I have. So ask the poet who's never been in Best American, ask the poet who has not published a collection and tried hard all their lives and loves doing what they're doing, but has not gotten a payoff.
Yeah.
I bet they would say, no, Sarah, it does not feel the same. So,
well, I mean, that's the obvious part, though. So, like, of course, that's going to feel bad. But, well, I just want to push back against this idea that if you're writing poems out of a sense of, wanting to be able to wade into that room full of people all wearing the same shorts that you're just not at all wearing, you can kind of still inhabit that character. I wanted to ask you, like, there might not be an answer to this question, but do you have a favorite mode of humor from among those three that you've described?
Definitely the incongruity theory, because that's something, if you're familiar with James Tate's work, that's something that he uses a lot. Russell Edson uses it a lot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be funny. What the reader is aware of is that something isn't lining up. So all the information that we've accumulated over our lives has created shortcuts in our brain. And there's something about the way this is written that's saying, and it could be just a word, just the way something's phrased, that makes you back up.
Wow, I think you just gave me a breakthrough. You seriously just gave me a breakthrough. It's not humor per se. It's incongruity. Because when people are faced with incongruity, especially at a poetry reading, they laugh.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Not because it's necessarily funny. It may be the most horrific scene ever, but it's the incongruity. It triggers laughter.
Laughter is laughter is having problems
Oh.
getting the, it's a result of it. Especially when you're in a group, it's a way of feeling connected to the group. That's why humor with poetry is incongruous to begin with.
Because it's inclusive?
Yes, because what poetry does, what the centers that it lights up in our brain are the same ones that are lit up by music and meditation, which is solo stuff. Humor, on the other hand, makes us feel aligned with the people who are around us.
It's a shared experience. It's reacting to a performance.
Yes.
I want to talk about, I would love to hear you talk more about the incongruity as it relates to ADHD, which is one of the many things that this book explores so well. And in fact, there's even a poem called How to Manage Your Adult ADHD, which is probably impossible to read aloud, but is wonderful to read on the page.
Tried and failed. I was thinking about recording readings of poems for my press, Copper Canyon Press, and I thought, I might try and give that one a whirl. And there are like 9 different voices in it. So
maybe you could do it with like 10 different people.
Yeah. Or I thought like, okay, I'm going to move the camera so you see this side of my face. And that signifies that, the voice shift.
Yeah, like a Maria Bamford kind of thing.
Yes, it's a very, very Maria Bamford-esque poem. So incongruity and ADHD, and I just pass out.
Oh, that's perfect. I don't even want you to continue. Something I want to throw in that just seems so relevant and weird is that you are one of 3 female poets over 40 that was, or who was, I should say, you're all human as far as I know, who got a late in life ADHD diagnosis.
Oh yeah.
And and one of these women who I don't remember if I'm allowed to say who it is, so whatever. She said, when creative people have ADHD, they tend to gravitate to poetry because you don't have to really think about anything for more than a line, and then it all restarts again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I started off with glass blowing. So
I didn't even know this about you. 20 years.
If you think you're going to do that with ADHD once, you're going to do that once. Then I tried filmmaking, which is expensive. You have to plan everything out, and the payoff, it's not in the making that there's payoff. It's in the completion that there's payoff. That's too long for me to wait.
Delayed gratification, no thanks.
Way too long. Poetry is cheap. I remember once thinking, I might have been on acid, that when you get to a period in a poem, you can switch into something else. Like the voices, the force driving the poem can shift between letters in the words within a word. It is so quick. It is so fast. It's
fast,
like
cheap, and out of control, one might even say.
Yep, wind them up and let them go. And the failure, well, I think there's 2 parts of writing. There's the generative part, which is when Mindy, my ADHD brain, gets to run amok. And it's like, that game where you're in the booth and you're catching dollar bills.
Dollars,
yeah. So it's that. And you just get to lie as much as you want. But it's in the editing that I have to rope that in and think, okay, I'm actually talking to someone. What is it going to take to get them to read to the end? Where the surprise is, surprise! And feel that there was a payoff for it. I think that's another reason why, again, funny poets don't win the Nobel Prize. that humor is seen as a waste of time, masturbatory. What am I going to get out of this? What am I going to learn about being human?
Right. I want to learn something. Yeah.
Right.
If it doesn't feel like homework, then it's not literature. And I'm saying that in quotes, of course.
If the writer's making fun of themselves, that's for them. If the writer's making fun of other people, that's also for them. But to approach it through, I'm going to take you into something where you think you know what's happening, that's a lot more directed. But some people would also think it's sneaky. And wait, you're telling me something that's not true?
Well,
I think that everyone has a very special, intuitive ratio of their autobiography to the page, and how much scrutiny of the outside world they're willing to bring into that too.
That reminds me of a conversation we had about, again, I think it was your suite of prose poems called Cars.
Yeah.
And speaking of ADHD, my God, I mean, that is just a masterful work, which I recommend to everybody. But I remember going through that and going through the rest of the book, and I was telling you, my favorite ones, the ones that just made me want to lie down on the floor and think for a year before having to get up and talk to anybody. You said, "Oh, you just like the ones that are true." And I thought, oh my God, am I really that limited? Am I reading? But yeah, I really, there's something different, not any better or worse, but there's something distinct about that mode where we're writing about personal shame,
So,
mostly shame.
More risk at stake, less wheel spinning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. And I guess the place that it comes from is the same, but the expression is different. Well, we've been talking about shame for the past 15 years at least. And I wonder if there's anything more that we haven't covered that we might talk about now.
Well, you were the first person to bring up shame at dinner.
Oh, really?
I remember, yeah, with me, and I was like, "Whoo, here's an interesting new hobby, talking about shame." I love it.
Oh, wow. When was that? Do you remember like the decade that was, or the year, or where we were,
Nope.
or what I was wearing?
We were eating outside. It was near bar between A and B.
Okay.
I think it might have been one of our first hangouts.
First dates.
Yes, first dates. You said I have a friend who does porn, and she said, I'm not in it for the money, I'm in it for the shame.
Oh yeah, I stole that line and I put it in a book.
It's good.
It's a good. Oh yeah, she's a genius.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, she's doing okay. She's doing okay. But yeah, and then for a while, I guess it must have been after that dinner that we had, we would frequently end a conversation or end an anecdote, or sort of curtail your anecdote by saying, oh, there it is. There's the shame. There's the shame. And, I still think of that. That's like this wonderful little lyric voice in my ear. Sometimes when I'm reading or I'm thinking about something that just happened,
or somebody working their way through a topic, like, just follow me on this one. I need to get this out.
Yes, you do. There's the shame. Yeah. And then there's this line that of yours that also rings in my ears, that we were talking about writing autobiographically, and whether that's something that should be distinct from other ways of writing. No. And then you very offhandedly said something that made me very envious, actually, and it was when you said, oh no, I've got like entire shipping containers full of shame that I have not even opened yet.
Oh
And
my
I thought,
God.
oh man, and then I thought I was done with mine, but of course it turns out that I too have those containers floating
Oh,
above
it's
me like bluebirds in a cartoon flying around my head.
so getting my diagnosis in my late 40s has enabled me to see why a lot of my life, especially my childhood, turned out the way it did, worked the way it did. If you've ever had somebody that you've just met 2 minutes later say, "Hey man, fuck you," I have, not just once, then like shit can get weird really fast and go sideways. And one hit me in the head last night. Because I was watching Pen 15. Do you know Pen 15?
Of course I know Pen 15.
Okay, good. So I was watching one of the episodes, and a horrible experience came back and just knocked me sideways. And now at least I know why that happened. I was just reading something about ADHD, the part of the brain that they don't talk about, they really haven't studied it, but that it affects the most is impulse control, which I've got in spades. That's why I'm a poet.
Yeah, but I don't think of you as an impulsive person. I mean, you hold jobs, you own a business, you maintain relationships, but maybe you found a way, like all of these, obedient women, I guess, under patriarchy. Like they're,
That's actually how
you've
I
channeled it.
prefer to be referred as.
Yes.
Jen,
Oh, Jen Knox. She's the one thing I can say is that she's so obedient. No, but come on. I mean, I don't. It's the male poets that we know with impulse control are the ones who are in jail. But
right.
I mean, I'm saying that this is like maybe part of your artistry. You funnel it into the poetry. What's that?
Sticking their dick in a few.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are poems that I've written and published, and I know that if I had more impulse control, I wouldn't have published them. I never would have written them.
Mm. Yeah.
I am living in central Iowa. I married a wonderful guy, but the fact that I moved here from New York, I didn't have a lot going on, but that I up and did that shows, and sometimes I'll look over at him and he has incredible impulse control. So the fact that we did this is a testament to the power of my lack of impulse control.
That's so interesting, because I think any normal person looking at that, and I'm not including myself in that group, but any normal person would say,
I wish you would.
Well, that's how you know it's true love. And they describe it as like a beautiful love story. But yeah, no, totally. It's pathological. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, you're not living in, the metropolis of Ames with, whatever Ames has. You're living in how many people live in your town?
I don't know.
It's like
but a lot of them have Trump flags. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So there it is. I just feel like, I wanted you to describe that a little bit more.
Trumpy. We have a diner.
I don't want to dox you or anything, but it's it's a small town.
Yeah.
And you were living in Brooklyn for a lot of years.
14 years.
Do you think it's changed the way that you write to not be in New York anymore?
100%.
How so?
In this book, because I put together the last one, which is Days of Shame and Failure, a lot of that was written when I was living in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. The difference is that there is not as much stimuli that is incidental. It is extremely elemental here. People talk about the weather so long, I think my eyes are going to pop out of my head and just blood is going to gush down my face. They can sustain conversations about the same topic So being that I'm ADHD, and I know a lot of the people around me were, because they were artists and a lot of poets. I mean, we went through it. We could circulate through 100 topics in 30 seconds. So I've slowed down. I think most of the poems in the new book are not just an exercise. Like I wrote 4 times as many poems for this book as I have for the previous books. That didn't make it
interesting. That's really interesting.
A lot more drafts. And the door that they had to cross was risk, personal risk.
Yeah. So would you say that most of the outtakes were sort of you clearing your throat, getting ready to take a risk, but not necessarily having risk inherent in the draft?
I think that what ended up being the book is a lot more cohesive, even though, and I just figured this out, I have been organizing my books so that it feels like you're moving through the channels on a TV from channel to channel, like everything is a very abrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Because I grew up out in the middle of nowhere, and I probably watched about 20,000 hours of TV from the age of 3 to 14.
Mm-hmm.
So I like a big hard break between poems.
Yeah, it makes them more potent. That's what your poems always have in the book. There's never that sort of oh, I'm being carried along on this word, or not wordless, but I'm being carried along on this feeling like a slow river. But every single poem in your book is potent. It's like potent, 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 potent. Nothing is just leading into the next thing. Each poem is distinct from all of the others. And that channel changing makes perfect sense to me now.
You know, they're not as distinct from each other as you think. It's the hard break that makes it seem like everyone's different. There's probably 4 styles in the book.
Like you only need 4 colors to make a map.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice.
When we were taught that in 4th grade, here, color this in 4 colors. Try to make a couple of them, or I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was amazed that whatever they asked us to do, it sure worked. Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah.
That's something that that's something that ordinary people would only learn if they were color psychologists and elementary school teachers.
Yeah, elementary school is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you got to really boil it down to what's essential.
Yeah, or
make it
fuck it up for kids for like the next 20 years. The last thing I want to ask you about is to just talk about the title, because I know the titles of your books are chosen with extreme care, and each one is really important to the work.
Well, this one was a gift from the poet Ada Limon. I was telling her the story of being diagnosed, of my diagnosis and the trip to the doctor, and how we sat at this table and he had me mirror the assembly of blocks that he was putting together. I had to do it on my side of the table backwards, like it was in a mirror. And then he would ask me a series of rapid fire questions, and then we'd go back to the blocks. And at first I told her I was crushing it. I was nailing it. And I thought, man, you better slow down a little bit or you're not ever going to get any Adderall. And then I sort of lost it. I couldn't make the block puzzle anymore. When I came to, the guy who was giving me the test was looking at me like, boy, you're an idiot. And I was like, oh, not crushing it. And she said, that's the title of the book, your next book, Crushing It.
Oh, that's brilliant. What did the therapist or psychologist then say?
I mean,
in other words, were you right about how you were doing?
He joylessly smiled just to show me that I was on to something when I said like, oh, I'm really not doing so good anymore. But the real kicker was he put me in a room by myself. Bad idea.
Oh God, who wants to do that?
With an old DOS computer. And what I was supposed to do was click the mouse every time there was a sound.
Oh, Jesus.
So let me tell you, when I walked out of that room, that computer said, who is that ADHD bitch? She's nuts. Because I was just clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking. You had to try and click as fast as you could. So, of course, I was preemptively clicking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, not that this should matter, but I took my my young son in for a hearing test before, he was like 2 or 3, before he really understood what an instruction was, whether, it is an instruction or a or do they just really want to see me raise my hand because I'm really good at raising my hand? It was a disaster. It was a disaster.
Here's my hand.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that. Anyway, he can hear. And you can definitely write poems, Jennifer L. Knox. It is such a pleasure to get to talk with you about these.
That was a great. Oh, I wanted to say one thing.
Oh, okay. Maddie, let's paste this in before it was so great, ...
You've got it.
In getting the results of my test, he said, the doctor asked me, have you ever been in a car accident? And I said, yeah, lots of car accidents, referring to the prose poem Cars, which is not an exhaustive list of several of the car accidents I've been in. And he said they were going to make that exclusively the definition, the symptoms in the, what is it, the medical handbook?
Sure.
Where, what is it, the MDMA?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the, I can't remember. Is this what happens?
M25, MK.
Oh, shit. Wait, no, I have to look it up. The DSM manual.
So there was a movement to make the entire, do you have it, yes or no, ADHD entry, how many car accidents have you had?
Oh, wow. And how many did you have to be in? Like 10?
I think there were 3.
Oh,
so I was
3. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I don't have that. I'm almost disappointed.
But I remember
things, though.
I remember reading that we did in Los Angeles at the museum. And there was, or maybe it was somewhere else. It was somewhere else. But I read that prose poem, Cars, and whoever I was with said, hey, you want to drive my car and drive us back? And I think it was Alan Michael Parker said, are you out of your mind? You're going to let her drive your car? This also happened at the museum. There was somebody there where you said, hey, you want to drive back? Because
that was when I had my driving phobia. That could very well have been me asking you to drive my car. And in fact, I think it was during that visit or another one, we went to Antelope Valley, so I could see I could see the sort of where you appeared from the bowels of the earth. Yep. And you drove my car because I had to. It was like my 9th year of living in California that I finally was able to drive on freeways. But everything, it was way too fast. It's like too fast to process anything.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we could segue into a whole conversation about karaoke and slow songs and fast songs, but maybe that's for another time. Maybe that's for a different podcast.
Too.
Yeah.
When we meet again.
When we meet again. All right. So now the important part's over. I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm sorry my connectivity was so shitty. We just got better internet, but it's not enough. Hey, Maddie.
We have shit internet through and through.
What's that?
We have shit internet through and through.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I was able to hear you both. It was a great conversation. I had so much fun listening.
Thank you so much, Maddie. You're really kind. All right. Well, Jen,
I'm
congratulations again.
No more. It menopause, Maddie.
Wait, say that again?
Menopause brain fog. I know, have words.
Oh God, it sucks.
You could have fooled
Um,
me.
Did I already tell you to read Darcy Steinke's memoir or essay
No.
collection? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
good. Okay. Yeah, read that. It's
Okay.
the only good menopause book I've found.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say to
include-
our listeners before we say goodbye?
Yeah, Jen, is there a thing that you want me to ask you so you can say the thing that you need to say? No, I realized I didn't even ask you, like, is there something that you want to talk about or you want me to ask? I was just like, oh, I'm doing this.
I love it. I love it. You know, I love it when you tell me what to do and
Mm.
what's going to happen.
I love telling people what to
Get
do.
out 4 crayons. Got 'em.
Got
Raise
him!
my hand.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, then we're good then, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you
Maddie,
both.
thanks again. I can't
Thanks,
wait to
Jen.
hear it. And yes, until we meet again in Valhalla.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.
I see